Welcome, everybody. This is Donnie Winchell again. This is a number 7 of a series of our videos attempting to help wineries who want to get into the business get started off on the correct foot. It's a fun thing to do for us, and hopefully they will be of benefit to you. These are pretty low tech in terms of production values, but hopefully jam-packed with good information that you can use. This one talks about the arithmetic of starting a small winery. It's not an easy task under any circumstances, but if you don't understand the dollars and cents behind it, the probability of success is dramatically limited. So you need to think about starting with a manageable production plan. We have seen wineries who start with 5 barrels and barely are able to get the doors open and certainly close their doors very quickly. We've seen wineries who build to produce right off the bat 50,000 gallons, unless they have very deep pockets and they have a very strong network of support behind them financially. It's very difficult to start and begin the production and be successful at that level. So these are just suggestions, food for thought, that you can consider. But most wineries who have a modicum of success start with about 500 or 600 cases. That's about 1,200 gallons, which is about 6,000 bottles. If you do the arithmetic and look at full price for those bottles, you'll generate about $90,000 in gross. If you can push a little bit and do 1,500 cases or about 4,000 gallons, you'll have the opportunity to bring in, maybe at $15 a bottle, about 300,000. But in every case, irregardless of the size, whether it be 5,000 cases or 500 cases, at the beginning, it's really critical that you consider developing a program using a long dollar. We'll talk a lot about long dollar in a little bit. In observing wineries over the last number of years, especially the new startups who have been successful, typically rather than trying to produce 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 bottles, we recommend they look at a maximum of 6, using what we call the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. There will be a group of people who are looking for dry red wines, so you probably need something dry and red. There will also be a group of customers looking for dry whites. A medium white is always important because that really is the bulk of what many wineries in Ohio sell. A sweet red, again, very popular for entry-level consumers. And then depending on your geography and your palate and what your goals are, either a fruit or a semi-sweet red to be added to the component, and then maybe a very sweet specialty dessert wine. That would be the last thing I would add to the repertoire if, in fact, I was opening a winery. I use a couple of caveats all the time. 82% of the population drinks some level of sweetness. Even Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, which is purported to be dry as a Chardonnay, really has about a 1% residual sugar. So it's important. If you are a serious quote unquote wine consumer who's been drinking wine for a long time, and if you make wine only for your own palate, you'll probably go bankrupt. There are myriads of folks out there in Ohio and beyond who have had great minds, great palates, great financial backing, but only produced big dry reds. Didn't last very long in the market. So think about the population. 82% drink some level of sweetness. So you need to be able to produce those sweet wines in order to justify making those great big dry ones that you personally are going to love. Also, you need to sell all of that wine. You can't be in a situation where you sell a tiny portion of it. So you have to have a marketing plan. We're going to talk a lot about marketing plans in another video. But to sell that amount of wine, you're going to have to, in a year, bring 8 to 10,000 people through your doors. And all of them are going to have to take a glass or two of wine. They're going to have to take a bottle or two. So you're going to be in a high traffic area or have a marketing budget to bring them in, or be in an area where there's a well-established wine and craft beverage and restaurant community to draw from. Some observations where you find those 8 to 10,000 people. You're going to find them locally. Your locals are going to pay the electric bill. They're going to come in 2 or 3 times a month and maybe more, and they're going to take wine with them home to dinner and to buy wine to show off to that favorite winery in their neighborhood that they love. Depending on where you are, approximately 25% of your customers may be tourists. In a high tourist area, that would be higher. In a more rural area, that would be lower, but about 25% will sell to people walking through the door. Generally, they're 1 or 2 time buyers. You don't see a lot of them, so you have to bring a lot of them through the doors over the months. You're also going to have an interesting market of returnees. Ohio is home to a whole lot of people. They move to California, they move to Florida, they move to Kentucky, they move to Tennessee, they move to New York, but lots of them still have family here. So if you play your cards correctly, as much as 25% of your sales can be from those returnees coming home to visit mom and dad, bringing mom and dad out. So a mix of local and a mix of returnee sales can be a significant piece of what you do. And then you got to figure out how to do the rest of it. There's a program called Harvest Host that a lot of the wineries use that attracts travelers with motorhomes. That's something to think about. Maybe you're going to do some events in your area. Maybe you're going to be the favorite winery of the teachers community in your area, but you need to figure out where you are going to get some of those folks. You may steal some from other wineries from the craft brewers in the neighborhood. We discover pretty much across the board in Ohio 25% of the people who come to a winery are very, very loyal to that winery. But 75% come and float from winery to winery, exploring what the region has to offer. So you need to figure out how to build the base of the pyramid so everybody in your wine community wins. You also have to have this marketing plan, and there'll be a different marketing plan for each of the various components that I mentioned above. So again, we're going to do a relatively in-depth dive into marketing in one of the future videos. You also need to understand the age differences in terms of wine consumption. There's a guy named Rob McMillan whose picture is in the corner. He works for Silicon Valley National Bank. They went belly up and they were acquired by another bank in North Carolina, but Rob's position maintains its street cred in our industry. He really is one of the clearest thinkers in terms of where the industry is now and where it's going in the future. So he will say, mostly in Ohio, 35 to 40% of your consumers will be 50 years or older. About 30% are going to be young parents, and the balance are going to come a very small portion for the Gen Zs and the younger millennials. If you look at the range ages of these Gen Zers, right now, as of 2022 numbers, only 3% of the wine consumed nationally was consumed by them. And statistics also show that about 26% of them abstain completely. They don't drink any alcohol at all. They smoke a little pot, maybe. They drink a little bit of White Claw, but they don't do a whole lot of alcohol consumption, at least wine consumption at this point in their lives. Rob says, we always waited for other generations to grow into their love of wine. Rob says, though, hope is not a plan. So we need to think about how to tap those Gen Zers, and the industry is working aggressively nationally on trying to figure out on-ramps for that age group. But right now, they will not be a large portion of your business. The millennials, these folks who are at home with young kids and are beginning careers, have relatively limited income, and they have very, very busy lifestyles with all those soccer games and all those volleyball matches and all those football games. They have limited consumable income, and if the economy slows down, they will be hardest hit probably. The Gen Xers are going to be at the height of their earning power. So they will be able to be out there to be tapped. About 30%, 33% of them, about 33% of the wine nationally is consumed by them. And then the boomers who are 70 plus, about 38%. So they are our largest target market now. But if you look, once they get over 70, they cut way back on the wine that they consume. So you need to think about how to market to each of these individual age groups, as well as to the groups of the geographic groups of people coming through your door, as I mentioned a minute ago. Some random thoughts. You're opening a winery with all kinds of enthusiasm, all kinds of excitement, all kinds of promise, all kinds of dreams of glory. But the first wines that you produce probably will not be your best wines. You will get better and better at your craft as you practice, as you grow, as you understand the fruit that you're working with a little more nuance. So if you're going to produce wines now, I would look at what will eventually become your everyday wines. You have to look at the price points that you'll need to sell all of those bottles to those 6,000 to 10,000 people that come through your door. but you need to put a price point on them that you can live with, and frankly, they can live with. You need to do some tasting about wines that are on the grocery store shelf at a similar price point. Are your wines as good as what they can get at the Kroger's or the Giant Eagle or the Marks or the Wegmans? So price your wines appropriately. Put a really good product out there. But as you grow and as your skills become honed and as your wines become better, you're going to have a very difficult time raising those prices dramatically for what you will need when you want to grow. So, a recommendation: start off with a lovely wine bottle with lovely wines. But when you get ready and you put out a premium line, bring out a totally separate label. It's easy to go from $15 to $16 on your everyday wines, but you can't go from 15 to 25 without driving all your customers away. But you can bring out a premium line later on with a little bit of a different package, a more elegant label, and you can start charging $25 if, in fact, the wine will be of a quality to match the $25 bottles on the shelf. Another random thought: there are really two ways to sell wine. If you are Gallo, if you are Mondavi, if you are J. Lore, you can sell your wines because you take great, big, beautiful ads in the Wine Spectator that cost you $50,000 a page. And you can sell your wine with what we call a push through the market. You can provide incentives with your wholesalers. They can help you push the national brands. However, you are not going to have that luxury, especially at the beginning, unless you have very deep pockets. So you're going to have to live with what we call a pull through tasting method. You're going to have tasting room sales that are great. You're going to have customer services that is impeccable. You're going to have to go to events. You're going to have to develop a social media campaign that is strong, well presented, and attractive. So you will need to think about this whole pull through the wine, one customer at a time, one bottle at a time. And it's a slog, it's a long slog, but it's really your best chance of success. I've had a couple of wineries open their doors and say, oh, we're not going to sell to the customers, we're going to go directly to distribution. Probably a recipe for disaster. Ohio is what we call a franchise state. That means once you sign with a distributor and give them a territory, you are basically locked into that distributor relationship for the rest of your business existence. I had a winery, and several wineries, but one winery specifically used to tell me, it's cheaper to divorce your wife and easier to divorce your wife of 30 years than it is to get rid of a distributor once you give them the territory. So if you are going to go distribution after you have a strong customer base that will help drive wine coming off the shelves where it's placed by that distributor, you need to make sure that you find segments. In other words, give your distributor a corner of the state, a couple counties of the state that you have a difficulty in serving, making sure that you're going to find ways to get customers into those counties, into those areas, to pull wine off the shelf eventually. But you're going to have a very difficult time ever getting back into a retail account if you run out of product or if you do not pull the wine off the shelf. So distribution early is a disaster for most wineries. Some other thoughts. To grow, you need to use the apple theory, one bite at a time. So when you have enough wine to serve all those customers coming through the door, and yet not all of the wine is selling, you need to think about growing slowly. Why should you go to a corner store? Well, you'll find a series of corner stores within about a 25 to 50 mile concentric circle around your winery. You will put your wine there because they're open when you're not. They'll go pick up a bottle or two of the wine because they're too busy to drive all the way out to the country to go to your tasting room. They are there 24/7, and they are there as your partner, as your friend. I have a lot of wineries who initially open and say, oh, I don't want to sell my wine to John Smith 4 miles down the road, and they make a giant mistake. So think about the possibilities of a series of corner stores, if you will, within relatively close driving distance. If you decide to go that route and to help sell some of your wine, you cannot sell without taking an order. You can't drive up to their back door and say, hey, Joe, I've got a case here. Do you need it today? Assign someone in the business to call them on Tuesday, take orders, and carry with you invoices for deliveries on Thursday with a pick 'em up truck that your vineyard manager can take up, or that your college age student who's living in your home can deliver for you. It's really important that these corner store mom and pop operations become your best friends. Bring them out to the winery. Treat them like the important folks that they are. They are your sales staff. Make them feel comfortable with your wines. Make them feel comfortable with you. Make them feel as though they're part of your wine family. And then let your customers know that they have the wines available when the customers need them. Customers will come to your door for entertainment, for relaxation. They'll come for experiences. They'll come for education, if you will. And when they come, they'll buy their multiple bottles. But you need to make sure that those stores that handle your wines see that wine coming off the shelves. Because if it doesn't come off the shelves, they won't place it again. And especially if you're working with any of the chains, even the small ones, it's all based on SKUs, those little black and white striped things on the back of the bottles. And those are reported to the wineries, reported from the winery sales to the retailer all the time. And you need to make sure those SKUs move. So make sure that there's an open door relationship, a two-way relationship between you and those retailers to have. And again, I repeat, you do not want to get into distribution early. You can't afford it. And eventually, because distribution probably was not for you, and the corner stores may not be selling enough, you need to think about other ways to get that long dollar. Think about going to festivals. Think about doing some festivals on your site. If you do that, make sure that you verify the legality of the people putting it on. We'll talk about that a little bit in another video, but it's very important because your license is at risk. If the local Chamber of Commerce is doing a wine tasting and they don't have the correct permit and you're there, liquor control may come and shut them down. Liquor control will come to your place and shut you down for a week or two. And if it happens to be over the holiday weekend, over Thanksgiving, over Christmas, over the height of the summer season, it will do significant damage. So be sure you understand the liquor laws. We'll talk a lot about that in another video. And if you do these events offsite, make sure you collect names, because you want to sell those people wines again. You want to bring them back to the tasting room. Find ways to get them to come back to the tasting room. Give them a business card on the back of it, stamp and say, bring this card in for $1 off or 50% off a food tray. You can't give away free wine. You can't discount wine, but you can bring them back for other things to your tasting room. And then if you have them come back to your tasting room, plan some on-site participatory events. In the research that we're doing lately, consumers want to do things while they're drinking wine. They maybe want to play cornhole. They maybe want to participate in these ubiquitous, which I don't necessarily like, paint and sip evenings, but they are incredibly popular. Bring folks into your winery to do stuff besides wine. That does create some staffing issues sometimes, and you do have to have a marketing budget to make this happen. But again, they will come to your winery and they will spend time with you and take wine home with you. If I'm wary of distribution, I'm ever more wary of restaurants. Restaurants are a separate animal. In order to be successful in the restaurant business, you have to be very disciplined. You have to be very willing to jump and say how high at the immediate whim, at every immediate whim. They need instant replenishment. They're not going to buy 3 cases. They'll buy 3 bottles. But when bottle 2 gets sold, they may not even call you until bottle 3 gets ordered. But when bottle 3 gets ordered, you need to be there to deliver those 3 bottles. And it may not be at the most convenient time in your delivery schedule. They're very tough to break in, and they're very difficult to have to sell once they get there. If you want to try this restaurant route, my biggest suggestion is to get to know the wait staff. The wait staff will sell your wine. We're working on a program now with state parks where we're doing staff training to get the state park employees to understand the importance of selling a local wine. If you're ever interested in those kinds of programs, the association has lots of assistance in helping you do that. But again, make sure you're ready for the restaurant trade. Make sure you're ready with wine quality. Make sure you're ready with quantities, because once it goes on that list, you have to hold back anything that you might have in inventory to keep them supplied. And then you have to supply them almost on the drop of a hat. Okay, bottom line, why you need the long dollar to sell the wine, all the wine that you can at your shop. Let's go to a reasonable price, we think. First part of this video, I quoted $15, but it's easier to work with round numbers. So let's say the bottle of wine you want to sell is $20. When you take it to that mom and pop corner store, you're going to sell it to them at $13.33. They're going to mark it up to 20. But by law, Ohio is a three-tier state. They have to mark it up to at least, they can mark it up to 25 if they want, but you have to sell them at 1/3 less than your retail price. But if you get in bed with a distributor, you need to sell that $20 bottle of wine to $10, at $10 to the distributor. They sell it to the retailer at $13.33, and the retailer sells it at $20. If your wine is good enough and you can get $20 for those 6,000 bottles at your shop, you'll have a gross of about 120,000. But at $10 a bottle, it's only $60. You need to get, I mean, $60,000. You need to get that long dollar as long as you can to keep those doors open and be successful. So thanks very much. I hope this was of value. This is one of many that we're producing, some done here by the association, some done by professionals in professional fields. So watch for them. We like to do this. We want to get you off on a good start. We always say we want to help you make great wine. If you're making lousy wine, we don't want to talk to you. And we want to make sure that you are responsible in all things that you do so that the money comes out the other end and those rose-colored glasses that you are wearing when you begin turn into reality. Thank you.